You remember the smell. It hit you the second you pushed open her screen door, something heavy and warm and honest, and your whole body knew before your mind did that you were about to eat something real. She was not a chef. She was a woman in 1964, with 6 mouths to feed and 37 cents to do it with. What she built from those constraints was not a compromise. It was a system, refined over decades, passed down without ceremony, and then systematically replaced by an industry that needed her to forget it. 15 meals from that system. Number 11 kept entire families alive through the worst decade in American history. Number 3 cannot be made alone, and that detail matters more than anything else on this list. Subscribe, one tap. Then stay with me. We start at 15. Number 15. Creamed chipped beef on toast. The soldiers had a name for it. 2 words. The first was a color. The second was unprintable. They cursed it every morning in mess halls from Fort Bragg to the Pacific, and then came home and quietly asked their wives to make it. She made it on Saturdays. Dried beef, butter, flour, whole milk. 19 cents in 1952. Fed 6 people without apology. That dish did not fade. It was replaced in almost perfect synchronization with the moment frozen breakfast products hit American shelves in 1953. One arrived, the other disappeared. That is not coincidence. She knew how to make it. Her daughter mostly knew. Her granddaughter never learned. Number 14 is built around a 15-cent can. You'll recognize it the second you hear the name. Number 14, salmon patties. You heard it before you saw it. That specific sizzle-wet batter hitting cast iron, a sound that meant dinner was 20 minutes away, and the kitchen was about to smell like something worth sitting down for. A 15-cent can of pink salmon in 1962. Crackers crushed by hand. 1 egg, formed into patties by feel, fried until gold outside and soft inside. Fed 4 children on a single can. Today, the same dish appears on restaurant menus at $16 a plate. Smaller, prettier. Made by someone who learned it from a culinary school rather than from watching their grandmother's hands. Number 13. Fed an entire Kentucky family for 3 nights straight on 4 ingredients and asked nothing but time. Number 13. Potato soup. 3 nights, 1 week. In January 1936, a family in rural Kentucky ate the same thing for dinner. Not because they lacked imagination, because the cellar had potatoes, the pantry had flour, and the cow out back had milk. 4 ingredients. Potatoes, onion, butter, whole milk. Simmered slow until the broth thickened on its own. Salt, sometimes a crack of black pepper if the tin wasn't empty. It cost almost nothing in 1936. It costs almost nothing now. That is precisely why it disappeared. There was no margin in it for anyone but the family eating it. Number 12 began with something most people would have thrown away. Number 12. Bread pudding with whiskey sauce. Stale bread. 3-day-old white bread that had gone dry and hard and useless to everyone except a woman who understood that stale bread was not the end of something. It was the beginning. 2 eggs, whole milk, a handful of raisins, a pinch of nutmeg, baked until firm. The whiskey sauce poured hot at the table, not in the kitchen. That distinction mattered. It meant this was an occasion, not a dessert, a statement. She made this when there was almost nothing left and needed the table to feel like abundance anyway. That skill transforming scarcity into ceremony was its own kind of intelligence. Number 11 is where this list changes entirely. It is the entry that kept families alive through the worst decade in American history. Number 11. Pinto beans and cornbread. In 1970, dried beans appeared on nearly every American working-class table at least twice a week. By 1985, that number had collapsed. In 15 years, an entire category of protein, cheap, complete, shelf-stable, vanished from the American dinner table. No announcement, just a quiet replacement, aisle by aisle, until the knowledge stopped being passed down because it no longer seemed necessary. That was not an accident. Stop here for a moment. This list is not about food. Every dish on it required knowledge-specific, practiced, inherited knowledge, passed from one generation to the next, without documentation. That chain was not broken by time. It was severed by an industry that understood one truth: a woman who knows how to feed her family from scratch needs almost nothing they are selling. What follows is not nostalgia. It is evidence. Pinto beans, a ham hock, water, salt, 3 hours on the back burner. Cornbread from a cast-iron skillet. Total cost in 1948, 22 cents. Fed everyone completely. She knew how to make it without thinking. Her daughter made it occasionally. Her granddaughter buys canned soup. Number 10 stuffed bell peppers. A 1,967 Midwest grocery receipt. Ground beef, 89 cents a pound. Bell peppers, 3 for a quarter. Rice from a 40-cent bag that lasted a month. Here is what that receipt does not show. She bought the soft peppers from the discount bin at half price, not because she had to, but because a pepper 2 days past perfect is identical inside to one that costs twice as much. Total cost for a meal that fed 5 people less than 70 cents. That is the number the receipt was hiding. Baked until the outside blistered and the beef inside absorbed everything around it. The modern equivalent arrives in a meal kit at $13 per serving. The pepper is perfect. The intelligence is gone. Number 9. Took 2 hours and started with a whole bird, not parts, the whole thing. Number 9. Chicken and dumplings. A whole chicken at 29 cents a pound in 1958. Dropped into cold water with an onion and a bay leaf. Left alone for 2 hours until the meat fell from the bone and the water had become something else entirely. Dumplings made by feel. Dropped by the spoonful into simmering broth where they puffed slowly and absorbed everything. Not soup with dumplings floating in it. One dish, inseparable. She never timed it. She knew by the way the dumplings looked. That knowledge lived in her eyes and her hands and nowhere else. Today it arrives at a casual dining chain in 12 minutes. It tastes like something described to a cook who once heard about it from someone who almost remembered it. Number 8 is the entry most people on this list refused to eat as a child, and deeply regret now. Number 8. Liver and onions. You wouldn't eat it. She put it down in front of you anyway because she was not running a restaurant, and she understood something no pediatrician had told her. Beef liver contained more iron, more B12, more complete protein per penny than anything else in that store. 19 cents a pound in 1955. Sliced thin, dredged in flour, laid into a buttered skillet with onions cooked low and slow until sweet. The smell filled the entire house. Somewhere between 1,965 and 1,980 liver disappeared from the American family table. Today it reappears on restaurant menus as a nose-to-tail delicacy at $24 a plate. Same cut, same animal. Different story told around it. You wish now you had eaten it. Number 7 was at every table that ever mattered, and whose was best was never a small question. Number 7, deviled eggs. Whose were best was known before anyone said it out loud. There was a hierarchy at every church supper, every funeral reception, every 4th of July from Georgia to Iowa. Everyone understood it. Nobody announced it. She was up before 5. 2 dozen eggs timed by feel. Yolks mixed with mustard, mayonnaise, sweet pickle relish, her specific signature, piped back by hand, paprika on top, arranged on the good plate. The good plate only came out for this. Stop here, because what this list documents is not recipes. It is a social architecture that no longer exists. The grandmother's kitchen was the last democratic space in American life. Everyone sat at the same table, ate the same food, brought their unrepeatable contribution. The deviled eggs were not food. They were her presence, made edible. Nobody thought to ask for the recipe in time. Today, deviled eggs appear on appetizer menus at $11 for 6. They are fine. They taste like something learned from a recipe, rather than from hands that had made them 500 times before. Number 6 spent 3 hours on the stove and cost less than a quarter. Number 6, ham hocks and collard greens. The ham hock was the part nobody else wanted. She bought 2 every time without hesitation, because she knew what 3 hours of low heat could extract from a cut the rest of the world had already discarded. 2 ham hocks. Collard greens washed 3 times. Simmered slow, red pepper flakes. A splash of apple cider vinegar at the end that made the whole pot come alive. 31 cents in 1961. The bitterness of the collards was not a flaw. She did not correct it. She trusted the people at her table to meet the food where it was. That trust was its own form of respect. Number 5 is the simplest entry on this list, and the one that will stop the most people cold. Number 5. Milk toast. You were sick. She heard you moving and appeared in the doorway and said nothing, just went back to the kitchen. 10 minutes later, she came back with a bowl. Buttered toast, warm whole milk poured over, a pinch of sugar. That was everything. 4 cents in 1948. It appeared in American homes from the Depression through the early 1970s, not as a tradition, but as the specific answer to a specific human need. Warmth, softness, the feeling of being cared for by someone who knew how. The wellness industry now sells warm milk rituals in amber bottles at $14 each. She never needed a label. She needed to know you were going to be all right. Number 4 sat at the back of the butcher's counter, and that had nothing to do with the quality of the meat. Number 4, beef tongue. It was at the back because nobody else was reaching for it. She walked past the display cuts everyone else was pointing at and asked for the tongue without lowering her voice. 11 cents a pound in 1952. More protein per pound than sirloin, more iron than any muscle meat in the case. Boiled whole for 3 hours, peeled while warm, sliced cold the next morning. Served on bread with mustard. It was not exotic. It was Tuesday. Today it appears on charcuterie boards at $16 per portion under the name lengua. Same cut, same animal. Discovered recently by people who called it adventurous. She never called it anything. She just fed her family and moved on. Number 3, could not be made alone. That was not a limitation. That was the entire point. Number 3, stack cake. Each family brought 1 layer. No single household could produce the whole thing, not because the ingredients were expensive, but because the cake required community, the way a barn required neighbors. Thin ginger molasses layers, dried apple filling between each one, assembled the day before and left overnight. A woman in eastern Kentucky in 1938 could tell you how many families attended a wedding by the height of the cake. 6 layers meant 6 families. 8 meant the whole community came. Stop here, because this is where the full weight of this list lands. Every dish on this countdown required something the modern kitchen has been specifically designed to eliminate. This one required other people. It required neighbors who knew each other well enough to contribute, to coordinate, to show up. The food industry did not just replace these recipes. It replaced the conditions that made them possible. It sold convenience and handed back isolation and called it progress. What was lost was never just food. It was the architecture of a life lived in common. Number 2 appeared on the table every Sunday for 30 years. Everyone knew what it meant when it didn't. Number 2, Sunday pot roast. A chuck roast, carrots, potatoes, 1 onion, a Dutch oven, 4 hours. 89 cents total in 1963. Fed 8 people. But this entry is not about the food. It is about Sunday, a day that was structurally protected, no errands, no appointments, nothing scheduled over the smell of something slow cooking since morning. The pot roast was not dinner. It was the signal that the week was starting over, and everyone was still here to start it together. Today, Sunday meal prep is a productivity strategy, batch cooking, efficiency. The same action stripped of everything that made it matter. She made it every week without exception, and everyone came. Number 1, her biscuits. No recipe. She never used one. Flour, lard, buttermilk. The amounts measured by eye, by feel, by a calculation she had made so many times, it no longer required thought. The dough worked just until it came together, not a stroke more, because she knew exactly what 1 stroke too many would cost. Cut by hand, laid into the cast iron, in the oven before 6 in the morning. The kitchen smelled like that before anyone else was awake. When she was gone, the recipe went with her. Not because she was careless, because it was never written down. It lived in her hands, and hands cannot be inherited the way a piece of paper can. That is what this list has always been about. Not meals, not ingredients, not even memory. What you could do, what you knew, what nobody thought to save in time. Challenge, close. Pick 1 dish from this list, not for your health, not to save money, to find out what your hands still remember. Make it this week, from scratch, the way she would have without a packet, without a kit, without anything that comes with instructions printed on the side. Then come down to the comments and tell me which one you chose and what came back to you while you were making it. Some things are only remembered by doing. If this list brought something back, like this video, it takes 1 second and it tells me to keep making them. Subscribe if you want to remember more. There is an entire century of American knowledge sitting in kitchens that no longer exist, and we are just getting started. And if this one stayed with you, click the video on your screen right now, because what comes next goes even deeper. The meals on that list were not just forgotten, they were buried, and you need to see why.